Sometime in the 2000s, I really liked the movie Who Killed the Electric Car. Back then, I was surprised at who needed to stop the transition to electric vehicles and why. After a while, I realized that it was the oil corporations setting the rules, and I was surprised at how powerful their influence was. And is something like that even possible? History convinces us that electricity and vehicles were only just invented, so it erases any trace of advanced technologies left from the previous civilization. They show plywood airplanes, ugly carts with low-quality assembly technology and minimal durability. At the beginning of the 20th century, electric cars were produced quite actively and in a wide variety. Why does the automotive industry of that time look so miserable by today's standards? Although we know that not long ago, before the catastrophe, there was a highly developed space-level civilization on Earth. The victors created a new reality in which humanity had only recently invented electricity and learned how to smelt steel. And there haven't been any dinosaurs for a very long time. Personally, I don't understand what they had against mammoths. They hunted down the last ones at the beginning of the 20th century. Therefore, in order to comply with the requirements of global governance, manufacturers built all technologies under the strictest restrictions. Most ancient technologies were forbidden to use under threat of death. Moscow, Tartary, and Russia, that is, the St. Petersburg region, had been under occupation by the Germans, the English, and the French since the 17th century, and ancient technologies were being destroyed. On a large scale, a new history and science were being imposed. And by the time of the 1917 revolution, Russia had finally been switched over to paid electricity. We know this as Lenin's State Commission for Electrification of Russia plan, and electric transport naturally became economically unprofitable. But just think about it. Before that, you could charge electric cars almost for free, and then suddenly you had to start paying money. And this was happening while a directive from global management was issued to develop the oil industry and transportation based on internal combustion engine principles. Here's a brief overview of articles about what electric cars were like according to official history at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. In the beginning, electric cars simply looked like carriages, and I suspect that it was actually a carriage with just an electric motor installed in it. This is the kind of electric car created by Ippolit Romanov, the Romanov Electro-Omnibus. At the Gatchina Palace, in the year 1900, there was a monorail electric suspended road. The invention of the lead-acid battery dates back to 1860. It was invented by Gaston Plant. Thomas Parker built an electric car in 1884. That's about 10 to 15 years earlier than our Russian inventor. It weighed 1.5 tons, moved at 35 kilometers per hour, and had a range of 1 kilometer. And already in 1898, the speed of the electric car in France reached 63 kilometers per hour, and 4 months later, the record was broken at 105 kilometers per hour. In this photograph taken in 1905, you can see two electric-powered vehicles, a bus on the left and a taxi on the right. The photo was taken on Broadway at Times Square, showing a taxi. 1897. Of course, it's easier to study the history of electric cars using Western sources, because in Russia, a program banning discoveries and inventions has been in effect for 250 years. That's why such things are covered sparingly and quickly erased, lost, and not publicized. We are all witnesses to how the media and the entertainment industry shamelessly cultivate the public opinion that the West is the beacon of technology and progress. And Russia, with its people, is portrayed as a decaying dinosaur living out its last days. That's how the global management has decided to present information, and most of Russia's population happily laughs when comedians mock the Russian automotive industry like, haha, yeah, what kind of technology could there possibly be here? But good job, guys, enlightened ones. No worries about fixing this mess. We laughed and went for a beer. Electric cars were produced individually and in small batches until the 1990s. Here's a brief overview of achievements in electric car manufacturing in the 20th century. In 1964, an electric car was produced. Battery packs were placed in the front and back. After 100 charge-discharge cycles, there was a loss of capacity. The electric car had a power of 115 horsepower. Instead of a rheostat contact system with electromechanical elements, a more modern thyristor pulse system using semiconductors was used. 1978. The power is 15 kilowatts. The United States Army purchased most of them. Lead-acid batteries in electric vehicles required maintenance and were a problem in 1979. This car could only go 40 kilometers and its maximum speed was just 55 kilometers per hour because it had a large mass and a weak electric motor. 1988. The maximum speed was 70 miles per hour and the range on a single charge was already about 100 kilometers, thanks to the fact that the electric car had a thyristor pulse motor control system on semiconductors. Electric cars were also produced in the Soviet Union. Here, for example, is the LED garbage truck from 1935, the Nami Lviv automobile plant. 750 electric car, various modifications based on Ulyanovsky Automobilny Zavod and on the basis of Yerevan automobile plant from 1973. Based on the Zaporozhets, ZAZ 968, Ulyanovsky Automobilny Zavod 2970, Volzhsky Automobilny Zavod 2102 и Volzhsky Automobilny Zavod 1801 Pony, Volzhsky Automobilny Zavod 2802 Volzhsky Automobilny Zavod 2702. An electric car based on the Gorky Automobile Plant's Gorky Automobile Plant 2705 model. The argument that electricity is also produced from oil and coal and therefore the electric car is even less efficient from an energy standpoint is a ridiculous excuse, of course. First of all, the energy from water produced by hydroelectric power plants is a free and endless source of energy. And its cost, along with its infrastructure and delivery to consumers, has been calculated more than once and amounts to just a few kopecks to several dozen kopecks per kilowatt. And it's not the government that is the recipient of this unprecedented profit. Aim higher. Nuclear energy is the same thing, only there's a mega show around it, showing how everything is complicated and unsafe. There is a well-founded assumption that this technology can be used at home with no more risk than handling gas. Secondly, electric cars can be charged at night when there's nowhere to use the electricity. At that time there's an excess of it because no one has bothered to store it for the future, for obvious reasons. And such technologies do exist. Batteries can be charged with solar panels. Many more arguments can be made about the benefits of this. But it all comes down to the fact that as beneficial as this is for a person, it is just as harmful to the maximum exploitation of humans as a species. And now we've come to an interesting topic with the experiment of mass car production in the United States in the 1990s. When I remembered that interesting film Who Killed the Electric Car, I thought, well, let me watch it again. And to my surprise, I couldn't find it, not on the first try anyway. I found it on some random website, tried to upload it to the channel and saw it. At that very moment it was blocked with the message "blocked in all countries of the world." Convenient, isn't it? You don't need to persecute anyone, threaten or plot against them. Just give the order. Don't show it anywhere and do it quietly. Then it will disappear from all resources without any Mandela effect, the story with mass production of electric cars and... This, I think, is a hint that something like that came out. In 1996, the company released an electric car. As a result, the car turned out to be quite advanced. The car's power is 138 horsepower. The car could accelerate to 100 km per hour in just 9 seconds, while its top speed was artificially limited to 130 km per hour. That means it could go even faster. The car was equipped with power windows, air conditioning, electric power steering, an audio system, ABS and cruise control, as well as a special charging device that allowed the car to be charged both through a special charging station. It took 3 hours for a full charge using the special station and about 12 hours from a regular household power outlet. That is at home. The range was 160 kilometers and with enhanced batteries it could go up to 240 kilometers without recharging. The company announced a price of $80,000 and, under the guise of a high price, rented out the car. But when car enthusiasts tried to buy this car even at that price, the company refused them. The car was distributed in California and Arizona, and a total of about 1,100 electric vehicles of various versions were produced. Then, somewhere in the higher circles of power, a decision was made to destroy all these cars. The car owners resisted as best they could, staged protests, wrote to various authorities, but nothing helped. All the cars were forcibly seized, taken away, and cut up for scrap metal. Only a few electric cars were given to museums and research centers. What they planned to research there is unclear, after first removing the electric motor and control system. I can't even imagine what kind of technological breakthrough was embodied in those cars. The filmmakers point out several reasons for the destruction. The main culprits, according to the researchers, were the oil companies, who supported the repeal of the zero emissions law because they were afraid of losing money from selling hydrocarbon fuel. Along with them, the company that organized the marketing campaign was also blamed. For some reason, the campaign advertised not so much the advantages of the car, but rather pointed out its specific features and shortcomings. In addition, another issue was the unusual practice of offering the car only for rent, as well as the complete destruction of the technology after the program ended. The government was also blamed for not providing an adequate network of charging stations, although consumers said in interviews that they were ready to charge from their home outlets. An electric car has significantly fewer parts and components, so repairs are much simpler. At the same time, the technician can do the work in a white coat. There's no soot or oily dirt. I still managed to dig up this fascinating film from the depths of the internet and post it on my social media. Be sure to watch it. The link is below the video. From this story, we understand that global governance conducted an experiment using people as powerless slaves without giving them any opportunity to act as subjects who could influence the course of the experiment. And what kind of experiment is that anyway? To get a child used to their favorite toy and then take it away. In exactly the same way, global governance involves different groups of people and even countries in social experiments where not just cars are taken away from people but their very lives. There is plenty of evidence that battery production technologies are deliberately chosen with a limited number of charge cycles. Plus, they also charge slowly, even though charging could take just a few seconds. And they have been deliberately held back for more than 100 years. And electric motors are designed with the back electromotive force effect, which means the electric motor not only spins but also resists rotation. And even under these conditions, the idea of the electric car turned out to be so attractive that people were willing to fight for the right to forever abandon cars based on the principle of burning fuel. And of course, no one in the movie or anywhere else will even mention the real reason why the electric car was killed, but I will tell you why. If there are a lot of electric cars, if they are produced on a large scale, they will be available to everyone. Then very soon there will be skilled people who will start extracting energy from the air, just like it happened a little over 100 years ago. And what is global world governance based on? Of course, on the control of energy resources. So think about it, I'm not reviewing the Tesla car, it's a very expensive car and it's unlikely to be mass produced. I'm also not reviewing the Elada car. You can check it out yourself. It's a fully functional version of an electric car, but production has been stopped by global companies. Today, quite a few modifications of electric cars are being produced in small batches. Today in Russia, despite the global ban, unique developments of electric drives based on new technologies are underway. I've already described inventions like Shkondin's wheel motor and the magnetic engine. I'm simply amazed by them. These inventions are truly inspiring. I'd also like to talk about Duyunov's wheel motor. This invention is being brought to life by a team of engineer inventors, managers and ordinary people, which is encouraging, since inventors in Russia have to operate under the rules of market capitalism without any government support. Thanks to the Slavyanka combined winding technology, Duyunov managed to create the world's first wheel motor without using magnets, which turned out to be much more efficient and cheaper than Chinese counterparts. The winding is placed directly on the wheel, and in a car, all four wheels can be driven. Duyunov's company engineers, not relying on global manufacturers constrained by corporate restrictions, are inventing their own energy storage devices that will significantly outperform those allowed for mass sale. At the end of 2017, an electric car with a motor built using Duyunov's technology was presented at the Urban Transport exhibition in Ulyanovsk. They even showed it to the president. Of course, it's not the president who determines the country's economic policy, that's the privilege of the central bank. Check the laws of the Russian Federation regarding the central bank. In all third world countries, this is a subdivision of the global governance structure. And that's why, by following its direct instructions, it is they who decide where to allocate money and where not to. Should the retirement age be raised or left as it is? No money is supposed to be given for electric cars in Russia. What's unclear? The company is trying to promote its products on the market using people's investments. The government doesn't seem to interfere with this collective investment, but it doesn't help either. However, this did not prevent the project from growing from a Russian startup into the largest international project in less than a year. You can learn more about the project by following the link in the description. I find this technology and the implementation of the project interesting. And what is government assistance, which was present, for example, in the Stalinist economy? This is stimulating demand through various mechanisms, restraining outdated technologies and encouraging the population to demand promising technologies. At the same time, such assistance may not be obvious, but it is crucial and it requires both economic and organizational resources. If I were asked whether it is possible to introduce breakthrough technologies in Russia, I would answer that I do not see the removal of restrictions on industrialization from the global predictor. This means that no support should be expected from the government. And the only way to change this situation is for society to have a direct interest in the latest technologies, which means being willing to invest in, buy, and use these technologies. To put forward your demands at all possible levels of government, and most importantly, to create an active intention, in other words, to be a subject, not an object of governance. Subtitles created by